Tonight we are talking about episode 602, Allegiance, written by Allison Evans and Steve Kornacki, directed by Kate Cheeseman. I'm Courtney Williams. I produce this blog, Outlander Behind the Scenes, and I do lots of things, including hosting this discussion with these lovely ladies. And tonight I am drinking an exotic water out of my favorite spaghetti jar.
This is for you and your water. This is for
you. I am Kathy Harmon, or Catherine Harmon Toomer, depending on where you find me. I am a family physician who enjoys both the books and the show separately. And I am also a contributor to Blacklanders. And tonight I am having a rum sunrise that I just made.
Ooh, that's pretty.
I needed rum. So now that you've seen it, I can mix it up and drink it.
Yeah, that is a very artistic drink.
Rum sunrise.
A rum sunrise. I figured tequila sunrise, but I had some grenadine and orange juice and rum. So I'm like, okay, I can make that.
Very nice.
My name is Carmen Schmidt, and I write the Outlander Anatomy blog. And I started it in 2014, and I write lessons about the human body that are related to Outlander, both the books and on the series. And I've been a fan since 2013, and I love both the books and the TV show, and I enjoy these discussions with my favorite ladies. And tonight I am drinking honey chamomile tea. So I've got a little halo here on my head.
Where's the finger for her, Antoinette?
It's a bit crooked. No, you want this water. I don't know what you're trying to do to us. Like, look at me, I'm all hydrated.
All right, you.
I'm Antoinette Simmons. I'm drinking Earl Grey and black chai tea because I just felt like having a good cup of tea this evening.
My overall impression of this episode, I was blown away again, even more than last episode. I could not believe it. So, I do multiple watches, and the very first watch, I don't watch with a critical eye at all. I just open up and experience it. Now, if something knocks me out of the story, then I notice it usually. But this episode, it pulled me in, and it kept me there for the whole thing. And I don't think I have cried more during an Outlander episode than I did in this episode. Maybe I'm hormonal, I don't know, but I was like, and then I'd recover. And anyway, every scene was like a little gem. I was just, I won't go on because this is our brief overall impression, but I loved almost every single moment of this episode.
It was by far the best Outlander episode that they've ever done. It was just the best.
Wow.
I mean, I watched it from beginning to end. I'm fortunate I wasn't able to watch it multiple times. I kept trying to go back and I watched little pieces here and there, but the acting was it was just so well done. Everything was well done. It was just a perfect episode.
I thought it was superb. I really did. And one of the things, not only the acting and the script that was written, which was outstanding, but the photography that was done and the attention to detail were all things that impressed me. I also love the fact that they really followed the book pretty closely. Even some of the quotes are right out of the book. There were some new ones, and they were well designed, and they had things to say, to add to the story. So I just thought 5 stars.
All right, Antoinette, it's your turn.
Oh, hot diggity damn. Woo! This episode was everything and a bag of chips. Damn, these people know how to make good TV. I freaking loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Loved it.
Let's go to favorite scenes. Catherine.
Oh boy.
Just go with one and then we'll
one.
rotate.
Okay.
Yeah, your
My
top favorite
scene was when Fergus came into the surgery and he was helping Marcel, and he finally became the husband that he was before, the one she wanted, and that was just beautifully done. And finally, we get to see Cesar or Caesar, however you pronounce it, shine. He's so good. Where was he all these other episodes? Why did they not use this gem? I'm just so glad this combination of writers and directors and is just the best combination I've seen. And I would say the only thing that I miss Stephen Wolfenden because I like his subtlety, and that would probably be the only thing I could say that it could be added. But other than that, that combination of writers and director is just and the acting was just perfect. That was a perfect scene. I mean, that I teared up just because it was when you talked about Tinder last episode, that was a connection that, I mean, there were sparks, there were fireworks, there was star. I mean, it was like they get shot it into the universe and we dinged off of every star coming down. Ooh, it was amazing.
Well,
I like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's waxing poetic.
All right, Carmen.
There might be a little bit of rum in my tea.
Oh boy, here we go.
Well, Kathy took my favorite. So I had my second one was Marcelly's unconditional acceptance of her child. That made me cry too. The look on her face, was just beneficent. It was just wonderful to look at that and to see her project that for this little child and welcome it into her heart. I just was deeply touched by her performance, and that they chose a child with dwarfism, and I thought they were going to pass that by, and they didn't, and I'm so glad they didn't. I think that we have to we humans have to be more accepting of everyone, and I just felt that this was this outstanding scene.
Yeah.
My top scene is a top sequence, and it's the whole thing, particularly from when Fergus walks in to when he exits. Same. I think it was perfect. I couldn't believe him. We've seen a lot of Lauren, but Cesar, I mean, the way his voice when he said, I'm here, over and over again. And his tenderness when he looks in her eyes and says, you always think you're going to die. All women do. And just, well, first of all, the relief when he walks in. You just see Marcelly's whole body, she's like squirming around, and then you see her whole body relax, and she's just like, Fergus. And then when she's kissing his head, it just, Fergus, you see why they're in love. You see the whole thing right there. And it's just so beautiful. And then when he's handed the baby and he's just loving this baby, and then he recognizes that he's a dwarf, his transformation is just phenomenal. And also Claire's face waiting for him to see that. And then when they connect, just the whole thing I found so beautiful. And again, when Marcelly sees her baby and says, he's beautiful, and kisses him, and he is so cute.
I know.
I'm sorry. I think he's cuter than your grandniece.
What? No. Oh no. She's the cutest baby that has ever babied. No.
I'm just kidding. He's very cute. But anyway, that whole sequence was just amazing. And I had the same thoughts, Catherine. I thought, are you kidding me? That guy's been locked up for the last, I mean, he didn't have, we met him in second half of season 3, right? He had a little, but not that much. And he's had nothing for season 4 and season 5. I mean, I want more Marcelly and Fergus.
To be honest, I think their chemistry is the strongest chemistry in the whole show. And I know people are going to say, no, it's Jamie and Claire. But honestly, to me, theirs is
in this episode.
In this episode, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Not to me. I still think this one. I mean, because I think that with Claire and Jamie, each of them are attractive. And so you react to their attractiveness and then their attraction to one another. But when it comes to just heat and spark and just this feeling of, I mean, it's like a hug. I don't know. It just seemed so much more.
I wonder though.
I think it's because we haven't really seen it before. And, you know, and just seeing it now, and it is just so incendiary. You know, it's almost like the first time we saw Claire and Jamie back in season 1 kind of thing. So no, I hear you. I hear you, Kathy. I hear you.
Wonder, do you think it has to do with the fact that they're playing their real ages and they're not, no one's doing a fake accent, no one's got all these wigs on, and I mean, Marcelly has a wig on, but I wonder if that's part of it.
Well, and Fergus has a Scottish accent. If you listen to him, he does have this bit of a Scottish.
But I wonder if he's picked that up from being on this show a little bit too.
Well, I mean, in the books, he does have a bit of a hybrid accent. Yeah. So I think it's part of his character.
But it could also be that they don't have the pressure on them that Sam and Kat have to be the central, you know, everything and carry the show. They can just get in there and do it, you know.
And they're single, I think. I mean, even still, they're not married, and there's not people watching them thinking about their spouse or whoever. And I did notice that when they did do the breast scene, they never showed Marcelly's face or Lauren's face. So I'm wondering if it was a body double.
She had prosthetic breasts.
Oh, okay.
I think they were
extremely intimate. And I just thought, my thought was like, it was so intimate and it was so realistic. And so I like you were saying last week, Antoinette, you felt like a voyeur. I was feeling that way. I was like, okay, I shouldn't be watching this, but I am, and I can't stop.
Yeah.
I was impressed when she turned to him and they began kissing each other.
Yeah.
That was really convincing. It really was.
Yes. And she crying, and when he had, you know, put his little French chin up and said, I'll not let you, I'll not, you know,
I'll not let you die.
Yeah. And it was so, I don't know, Fergus. I just felt like I got Fergus from the book.
Yeah.
From the books. And it was so great because I've missed him.
Yeah.
Antoinette, you rebel.
My favorite scene was the scene between Claire and Marcelly, when Claire was examining her, and then she starts to talk about Fergus, and oh my God, that relationship between Claire and Marcelly is just so beautiful to see. And I'm so sad because I don't get that same spark and connectedness between Claire and Bree. You know, I loved how much her love for Fergus just came through in that scene. And I loved everything about that scene. Lauren Lyle is just I love that scene. I loved how Kat just at the end where Marcelly brings up the whole situation, the thing with the Browns, and Claire just disappeared into herself. And Kat just did that with just her eyes. It was masterful.
Mm-hmm.
It was masterful for the quality of the acting and for the connectedness and authenticity of the relationship. That was my favorite scene.
That was on my list as well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the transfer from Claire being the caretaker where she's comfortable, and then Marcelly brings that up, and then Claire recedes, and then Marcelly sees it and she's like, okay, yeah, you know, I'm sorry I upset you. Oh, it's a headache. Oh, right. Yeah, I'm not buying it, but I'm gonna hold your hand and we'll just look at each other. It was that energy shift. That was a really an amazing scene. I agree.
Yeah.
It was just
that
real.
Kate Cheeseman is a boss.
It's real. I mean, it's
you
just so
cannot
real.
get those performances out of people unless you know how to tap into human emotion.
But the words also, it was also the words.
Don't get me started.
Often sometimes we watch this and you're just like, that's not a realistic interaction between human beings. Or if someone said that, that is not what you'd say back. In this situation, it's like every single line fit with the line before and the line after.
Yes.
It was just so well written. The other was when Ian was laughing at Jamie because when the Cherokee women came in and then he kicked them out. Yeah. And Ian was laughing. And then the other was when Ian was saying a prayer for Marcelly and the baby. And he was brilliant in this episode also. John Bell just really knocked it out of the park this time.
Yeah.
I mean, what I find really intriguing is that I've never met a lot of actors, but often when I do, I'm disappointed that I can see threads of them in their characters.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone got lost in this. Rick was lost. John Bell was lost. I've never met Sophie, so I don't know, but it just seemed like you could not see any part of who they are in these characters. They just melted into them. And it was just so well done. And obviously the material they were given clicked.
Yeah, so rich.
Yeah,
rich.
It really was.
I liked the Mrs. Wilson. Oh, Hiram Crombie's mother. Her death, her near death, and then her death. It's not funny that she passed away, but it was actually quite well done. I was interested to see how they were going to handle this compared to the chapter in the book. And I thought they did a really good job of depicting it. I thought the woman that played her did a very good job. I thought she was believable. And I thought that she did an excellent job of portraying a woman in extremis and one who is, had enough spirit left to want a decent funeral for herself. Her scolding of her son-in-law, and then once he paid, why, he was a good lad. You've been a good lad all these years. First you got to put your money out. I also thought Sherman, Granny on her skirt, I thought that was really cute. And the Sin Eater was good. He did a good job. He wasn't quite as I imagined him, but quite as debilitated as I imagined him, and as creepy as he is in the chapter. But he was good.
Yeah. I even cried during that scene when she forgives.
I did too.
Hiram.
Yeah. My other favorite scene was the scene with Jamie and the Cherokee woman. I thought it was perfectly played. It could have been so kitschy and corny and silly. It was humorous without tipping over into being silly.
Yeah.
His reaction, Jamie's reactions were just priceless. He was so affronted when Ian told him that the girl didn't want a baby with red hair. What's wrong with red hair? The pitch was just perfect. And him and John Bell just play so brilliantly off each other that was one of my favorite scenes. And I loved the humor that was threaded throughout this episode,
Yeah.
and I thought that was one of the high points of the humor that was in the episode.
That's what I feel was the writing. It was so balanced.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of everything and it just felt like complete.
Yes.
My next favorite was the young Ian and somebody say it with a French accent. Little
Only
baby.
Christian?
Yeah,
Only
thank
Christian?
you.
Only
Yeah, when he was saying the prayers and then telling Marsley about his baby. That was a very touching scene. I really loved hearing him speak Mohawk. It was beautiful. I was talking about the scene where he's holding Marsley's baby, giving him a blessing, getting all teared up, and then tells Marsley that he had a baby, and she has such a Marsley response, like, did you? And I thought it was a great device to have Jamie overhear that. A great adaptation to move the story forward. But John Bell was just so...
He was just phenomenal. Everyone was. It was such a melting of so many things that it's hard to distinguish, like pull out favorites of scenes, favorites of things, what you noticed, because it was just so, it was so seamless. It just felt like an experience that you just didn't want to turn away, even for a second.
During this show, we have watched John Bell grow up.
Yes,
from a boy into a man. And I could see that in his performance and the depth of emotion that he was able to pull out for being quite stoic. He's playing, as is in the book, he plays Ian as a return from the Mohawk. He's quite stoic and he's still able to pull out that emotion in each of those scenes that were extremely tender and caring and understanding on his part and patient, and showing his love and support for everyone that he was with.
The Roger and Fergus scene, I thought was fantastic. The Malva and Tom Christie spoiled milk scene.
Oh gosh, yes.
That was fabulous. You know what I loved? When Mr. Bug is whispering that little story to Jemmy. It is literally an 8-second scene, but I appreciate so much that it was there because it just gives you the flavor of the family and the ridge. It was 8 seconds. I loved when Jamie came in and threw his coat on Mrs. Bug.
Yes.
And then I loved the horse riding.
Oh, I had one more.
Yeah.
I love that whole reunion with Jamie and Claire after he comes home. And I loved it because I kept looking, I'm saying to myself, how the hell are they delivering those lines and not just cackling with laughter?
Well, she was laughing at him.
She was laughing.
She was laughing at him, and you could see the amusement.
Yeah.
Did they have to do in order not to just be cackling? And then that scene had one of my favorite lines from the book, which is, if you weren't married to an old man, you'd be on your knees with your ass in the air this minute. I just love that, Jamie. I'm so glad that we are getting to see them like this. Yes. It doesn't always have to be hot and bothered and woo, woo, I love you, woo. We're getting
the playful
everything about their relationship. And I think just that little scene, just peel back the curtain and say, oh, this is what they get up to when we're not really seeing them. They're just talking dirty to each other. And I loved it.
You know what I appreciated about that scene, in contrast to the one in Better to Marry or Than Burn, the stable scene, because it was a similar vibe that they were going for.
Yes, it was.
But this one was successful and that one was not.
Look at my
It was
face.
like one was like kindergarten and the other one was a PhD.
Exactly. Is that the intimacy coordinator?
I mean,
is that Kate Cheeseman?
It's the director.
Yeah.
And the writing.
And the writing. No. I think it's the director. You know,
It's got to be the director because
the barn scene was from the book too.
Yeah.
And this
but
one
you know,
read the book as well.
Yeah,
But
you're right. Because Katrina was like,
it
was so cheesy.
It's the subtlety of the director.
You know what it is?
Way to go,
you know what
Kate.
it is that the way it showed on the screen was the way it played in my head when I was reading
the books.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, I agree with you, Kathy. I agree with you. And because I'd read the books, I was able to just fill in the backstory without them having to give me the backstory, because the thread was just there and that planted and ran through so perfectly. Yeah.
What worked, Carmen?
I will repeat one part, and that is that I considered this episode to be a terrific adaptation from the book, elements of the book, and they didn't play out line by line, and I think we've said it before, and I'll say it again. That is not necessary, in my opinion, that it has to be an exact duplication of the book. But they managed to capture the spirit of these scenes that are as they're written in the book and bring them to the screen. And that cannot be easy to do, because we've seen plenty of times in this series when that hasn't happened that well. But this is just, I thought it was just that part is outstanding. I like the 75-minute episode. That is really nice to have a little bit more time to develop the story and not just dash from this little thing to this, to this, to this, but it had a nice even flow to it, I felt, and a nice pace. I liked that about it. I thought, I will repeat that whole scene with Marsley, but when she said, could I have a paper and ink? And Claire asked her what for, and she said, I want to write my mother. And then, you know, she told Fergus that, he said, all women say that they're going to die. And she said, that's because a lot of them do. And they did in that time. And I thought that was really just outstanding. I don't know if you noticed, but Bear created some really dreadful music for Tom. He's got, he did. If you go back and listen, there's some real ominous music that plays with him when he's around. Not always, but you know, especially that tense scene that you mentioned, Courtney, with Malva. That was just dark and really, really evil. That just had a vibe about it that was just horrible. And the music that played in the background very lightly was totally, was the correct backdrop for that particular scene, I thought. I thought that I liked the Cherokee interactions between Jamie and Ian from when they arrived to when they left. I thought they were well done. I thought the actors did a great job. I thought they had good rapport with each other. And I liked the village that they created. I do not know if it's authentic or not, but it certainly looked like it could be. And I really appreciated those things.
Catherine, what worked for you?
But didn't work. Everything worked. I mean, really, everything worked. Even Sophie worked in this.
She did pretty well.
I mean, I normally find that her acting is good, but when you're up against excellence, it pales in comparison. And even with this, she came through. They gave her a little bit more. They gave her some things that, you know, her feelings were hurt. It was obvious. And that was just something that I felt and her interaction with Roger, I'm enjoying the fact that their chemistry has grown in this. You know, before I always felt that she thought his breath smelled. I mean, that's the impression I got whenever they interacted. Just like, I don't want to talk to him because his breath smells. I mean, that's in my head. That's what I was imagining. But in this, it seems like they're a real couple.
Yeah.
And they're friends. That's the most important. It's not just that they're a couple, they're friends. And that whole scene around, you know, when she said she had a surprise and everyone thought it was because she was pregnant. And she was like, what? Only thing I can be is pregnant, and I can't just do something else. And it just felt like that was authentic. And I thought it was just everything worked.
I want to echo the writing. You know, last discussion, I did not mention this writing team, although I did notice they were there, because they wrote my least favorite episode in season 5, which is Perpetual Adoration. And now I'm wondering if they got stuck with that for, you know, like as the new people, they said, here, do this thing. It's going to go back and forth and good luck. Because, wow. I mean,
yeah.
It's the, as Carmen said, it's the taking stuff from the book and seamlessly weaving in their own writing to make the transitions and the connections so that it all works. Mm-hmm. And we're all book readers, and I wasn't at all like, well, that didn't happen. You know, I just, yes, it all worked. It was so good. The directing, Kate Cheeseman, is phenomenal. The intimacy coordinator, I love her. Vanessa Coffey, she has added a lot to this show, in my opinion. Yeah. Jess Reynolds as Malva. Yeah, she's another little Lauren Lyle and Laura Donnelly, I think, in the making. I loved the development of Malva from the first scene where she's quoting the Bible verse to Claire to shut her up, and then to that last scene where what I saw was that she, you know, the kids were very interested in watching their father interact with the Frasers, and I believe that they start to see his impotence through this episode. And that scene in particular, when Malva has that little demonic little look on her face, it's kind of like, I'm not scared of you anymore, you know? I mean, and again, another great device that's not from the book, that he actually whips her in the book, and someone sees, I think someone sees that, Jamie or
Claire. No, it's Claire.
Claire.
Claire sees it.
But we got to see that he does take his frustration out on his children, both in that steeple scene with Jamie, when he, you know, he's so pissed and he looks over at Alan like, I'm gonna kill you, and Alan's like, oh damn, you know, like, oh, let me start sawing this, whatever he's doing. Yeah. And then same with Malva, and she says, you know, I didn't do anything, and he's just pissed, and he's like, you're my kid, so I can beat you.
He just lost to Jamie.
Again
in front of his son, and so that is why he takes it out on his kids, is because they are under his thumb.
Yeah, because he's actually a powerless man.
Yes.
Seeking power. So the last thing I'll say, I have more, but is, you know, I just feel this season is next level. It's more sophisticated. It's more intimate. There's more book. There's more channeling of the book. Because, you know, I recently started rereading the very first Outlander book, and season 1 is pretty much exactly adapted from that book. I hadn't read that in a long time, and I was surprised how almost, directly, you can't do that when there are all these characters and all this complexity, but they are doing a phenomenal job.
I got the impression when she was quoting the Bible about women not speaking, is that she was telling Claire, look, he's trying to tell you to shut up, but we know better. I didn't get the impression she thought Claire should shut up. she was trying to let Claire know that he was trying to get her
I
to
agree.
shut up. And she
Really?
was like, and yeah, that's
Mhm.
the impression I got.
I got the
I didn't-
impression that
yeah.
she was feeling uncomfortable
Mm.
and
With
maybe
Claire
going
speaking
like,
up.
let me speak up so I don't get a beating after this.
Oh, see, I got it as he's trying to tell you to shut up, but we know better. I mean, that's the impression I
Okay.
got.
Yeah,
All right.
me
I
too.
don't know. And that fits more with her personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This, I mean, they have set the bar so high, I'm almost fearful that we cannot maintain this level. And I will be pissed to the heavens if they fall off because they have set themselves up. You know, they better come, like, they better bring it. Cinematography in this episode is outstanding.
Yeah.
From the wide panoramic shots to the intimate indoor scenes, the lighting, the angles. I mean, these are people at the very top of their game, and it shows. Everything is beautifully shot. When it needs to, I'm getting the chills. These people are at the top of their game. The music is working for me on a next level. I never used to notice the music. For me, it was just in the background, unless a particular song struck a chord in me, like that song from Je Suis Prêt, the Moxa Mine, that song struck a chord in me, and I've loved that song ever since. But Carmi, what you say about the music for Tom Christie is just spot on. The music is the music is almost like a character in itself, but it is not taken away from the story. It is adding to it. I am just, the geniuses on this show are colliding. Bear is a genius. You know,
Yes.
The writing was genius. The writing is working for me on another level because, you know, I've had issues in the past with some devices that they use and how they try to horn things into the story from the books. Just is as if they're saying, oh, here, book readers, here's a little pat on the head. We threw something in from the books. So shut up and let us tell our story now. That's not what is happening. That's not what happened in this episode. This episode and the one before, they are distilling the very essence of the story and these characters. And as a book reader, I am not in any way feeling shortchanged. Even if some of the favorite lines had not been in there, I would still not have felt shortchanged because the story was just so well done, so well written, not ponderous in any way, not preachy. I mean, it wasn't full of unnecessary verbiage. The writing is working for me big time. Those costumes, especially in the Cherokee village, damn. Love them.
Yeah.
And let me not talk about malevolent Malva. I mean, she's taking her snakiness to a different level. Did you see her eyes in that scene with her father? She killed him and dismembered him in her mind.
I think it's called castration.
And she's thinking about where she's gonna hide the body parts. Bravo.
You said that the genius is colliding. I feel like the genius is being orchestrated. And what I love is that Tom Christie, Mark Lewis Jones, who was last episode, basically, he didn't shrink, but he just went down, you know, it's like he was the strings and now it's time for a different instrument, and he's still there and he's still doing this, but he's playing softer in this episode. You know, that's what I see it as, like a concert, like an orchestra, and it's just all going so perfectly and beautifully. I am curious if it is because of the cloistered nature of the filming, just like season one, you know, nobody knew about it yet. And this, because of COVID, they sort of had that kind of setup again. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. If it does, they should do it like that every season.
Yeah. A lot of these pandemic shows are built different. I'm serious. The quality.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. You could be right, Courtney. It's drawing something. There's some kind of alchemy that's there.
Yeah, well, they're not distracted.
Exactly. I think it's focus and you know, and intimacy, you know, maybe that's why this season feels so intimate. Okay, we're going to do least favorite scenes. Did anyone have a least favorite scene? Catherine? I see your hand, you're last.
My least favorite scene would be not the, I feel bad because I criticize Sophie, so bad every episode, but my least favorite was her reaction to Ian saying the prayer for Marcelly. The prayer itself, the actual scene itself, there wasn't a scene, actually. I have no least favorite scene. I just have least favorite component. This was so well done. I didn't even notice the walls this time. That's how good it was.
That's like a 5 stars comment right there.
Yeah, I didn't even notice. My least favorite was just, by comparison, certain people paled, and that was it.
Okay. Do you have a least favorite scene?
I can't say that I really do, but if I have to choose one, it is again Claire self-medicating it with ether. I still am not pleased with that device. What led her to do it, I thought was good. You know, when she heard Lionel's voice say, "Well, Dr. Rawlins," you know, and that horrible, you know, and it looked like someone is standing on the other side of that door. It looked like there was a person there, you know, who was obscured by the glass because you can't really see through it. And that was kind of creepy. But it's just that part of it. I wish they had chosen another vehicle. But I thought Claire acted fabulously in that scene. So it wasn't that. It's just the ether part.
I, again, pressed to pick a least favorite scene. It was either Brie making matches, that scene, or Jamie with the Indians. I think that was the one where I was the least into it. Those two scenes. So, but they were fine scenes just compared to the rest of it. If I had to choose, those were,
My least favorite scene was the funeral, the granny. What's her name? Wilson. Granny Wilson's funeral. The scene in itself was, you know, it was well done. The lady who played Granny was very good, everything, but it just felt like an outlier. It felt like it was put in there almost like some comic relief, and we really didn't need it. I don't think we needed it. It was good to see it, and I had a little chuckle. Oh, they're doing that scene. But then when I looked at the overall story arc in the episode, I didn't see how it fit in. It didn't add anything to the story, and it just felt like a little add-on to please the fans. And I'm not okay with that.
It was a lead up to her being called a witch
to the fans. Well, but they were saying that from before. Because remember in at the beginning, Alan Christie's sister, or some people might say that's a witch. That was even before Granny Smith's thingamajiggy. So
well, now they're really gonna say it.
That was my least favorite scene. It just felt unnecessary.
Got it. I disagree. I liked that scene.
I think it was a bridge. And I think it was a bridge because the Sin Eater has an important part to play in the future. And he had to be introduced somehow along the line. You don't remember? We'll see what they do. But that would be one reason to do it. Another reason for that scene was to get Roger into the situation where he would be preaching in the future.
Good point.
And then the third one was that to reiterate that there's talk now about her being a witch. And that caused Jamie to come back to Tom and say, you cut that off now.
Yeah.
That's not going to be any more of that kind of talk.
This is lazy, but there wasn't anything that didn't work for me, honestly. So take that.
Okay, I have lots that didn't work for me. Let me get my legal pad with everything that didn't work.
All right. All right. A legal pad?
Even the scene that I didn't like worked for me because it's just so well done.
Oh, I thought you're a very good actress, Antoinette. I was like, what didn't work for her?
Even the scene that I didn't like worked because you know it was just well done. Granny Wilson was a wonder. I love the children.
Yeah.
I forgot to say in the what worked. I love how they're using these lists. And listen, they must have listened to us last week because do you see that they used a real baby? They CGI'd in little Henri Christian, and we didn't get that little wooden baby that Amy McCallum had in episode 1. Somebody said, let us get a real baby because
do you guys think
are gonna crucify us.
Do you think Henry Christian is CGI'd or is he real?
Yeah.
No,
he's
real.
When I say he's CGI, real. I mean he's not in that scene. That baby is not in that scene. That was filmed separately because you don't see anybody else. You just see him and Marcella looking down at him. That was not organically filmed in the scene where everybody was in the room. No, that wasn't. That's why I said CGI, but I don't mean CGI.
He's
like
a
that,
real
like it was a fake baby.
The real
it
baby.
was a real baby, but it wasn't filmed continuously in that scene.
When he's doing that little squeaking that babies do when Ian, I think, is holding him and he's going,
Yeah. Oh. I was a little concerned because his head is really pulled forward like that. Did you all see how he was
being held
in Ian's arms? His chin was sitting down on his chest. And
maybe that's why he couldn't breathe.
It sounded like he was kind of wheezing a bit, but I don't know. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But I did think that was, if that was a live baby, that was probably a little hard on his neck.
I was just so impressed by the fact that they actually had a real baby and a real baby that represented what the baby was supposed to be in the books. That I did not expect that. I was actually very surprised.
I was so happy.
I was very surprised.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, Game of Thrones may have paved the road for some of that.
Oh.
Making people with different conditions being placed in acting situations. And I think it's a wonderful thing. They're part of our culture and they're part of our lives. They should be represented.
Well said.
I agree.
Okay, things I noticed.
I noticed a definite improvement through the seasons. I'm concerned because this was so well done this season. It's almost like they're throwing everything at this season that I wonder if they think it's going to be the last.
Not season 7.
No, we have a season 7 coming for sure.
7.
We do have a season 7? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I hope they keep these people for season 7 because it could easily get really old at this point, and it's not.
No.
At all. I mean, it feels like watching the first episode. It's that exciting. it was like seeing old people do new things.
Yeah.
Even though we watched them for 6 episodes. I mean, 6 seasons.
Yeah.
This is just, it's like seeing something new. It's really, that's what I noticed. I just noticed how masterfully they created something that is still elevated from prior seasons. And that's really what I noticed most, that it was just great from beginning to end.
Did you see that Adso in the opening was sitting on Major McDonald's jacket, his red jacket? That's why when he had it on, he was like sneezing so much, is because Adso had used it for a couch.
That was great.
I don't know if you noticed Jamie dismount when he and Ian rode up to the Cherokee village, but it was that leg over dismount again, which was cool to see. I love the nature shots. I counted 13 different ones, and they were, I thought that sometimes when I've seen some of the nature shots, it felt like it took me out of the episode, and these did not. I can't explain exactly why, but last night, my husband watched it with me, and he said, "Where did they film this? Where is this filmed?" I said, "It's in Scotland." And he said, "That is just beautiful." I mean, it just really made me feel like I was there, and why one of the reasons why they love the ridge so much is because of its natural beauty. I don't know if you noticed or not, but Marcelle's prosthesis, her belly, she had a protruding navel on it, and I thought that was really cool. No, that is what happens during pregnancy, the 3rd trimester. It's very normal for it, but you can see it under her shift. And I thought, how cool is that? Instead of just having a ball, she actually looked like she was pregnant. I felt the way she laid and the way she moved and everything. It was extremely convincing. And I also thought it was really interesting that she and Claire both lied to each other in that scene. Claire said, "I have a headache," and that's not what was wrong. And Marcelly said, "Well, I made him do it," meaning Fergus, "and it was an accident, I fell," or whatever it was that she said. And that is what abused women make excuses for their husbands quite frequently. And I thought that was really interesting that the two of them were not being honest with each other about these excruciating, painful things that were inside of them. And I hope that they will be able to reverse that with each other. Marcelly did, to some extent, in that scene. She did fess up that, well, he had grabbed her, but it was still her fault that he grabbed her. And I thought that was the last thing I will say is that Marcelly's post-birth belly was also very real. She wasn't flat. She had a pooch on her, and that's very real after you give birth. You don't drop back down to where you were before you got pregnant. And I thought that was also really well done. So that was what I meant earlier when I said one of the things I liked about this episode so much was the attention to detail. And those were little things that I noticed, here and there that they could easily have allowed to slip under the radar, and they didn't. And I commend them for that.
Did you guys notice that when Marcelly says, "I think it might be as well that I write to my mother," she starts to cry, and she actually looks like Leary.
Yes.
She actually looks, she holds her mouth like Nell holds her mouth when she's playing Leary in that scene. I was like, what? You saw that too? Yeah. It was crazy. I loved the opening shot from above the river with the rock in the middle. There's one of my favorite places in the world, looks very similar to that. Were those fishing poles in the Indian village going into the river? Did you guys see those?
I didn't see
them.
They had fishing.
I did notice Ian's spear.
Yes, he had a spear.
Yeah. Well, they had fishing pole looking things, and then they kind of had ladders that didn't go anywhere. That maybe those are used to dry meat on or something. I'm not sure.
I think they did dry fish.
Oh, okay. I didn't
fillets
see
on
fish.
those. well, I don't know if the Cherokees did, but I know that some of the Native Americans did that.
Okay.
Here they did it in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know about the East Coast area.
I noticed when they rode up to the Indian village and they were handing over their weapons, they're standing in a field of sort of, you know, a little bit knee-high grass. And for a horse, that's like if we were standing in an ice cream shop with all your favorite flavors right there. So I was watching Jamie try to do the scene and hand over his weapon while he tried to keep his horse's head up from eating the grass, you know, which was pretty, you know, he had to be coordinated to do it because the horses are literally just like, I mean, that's what they do. So I noticed that. I noticed the chief had very good English and sounded educated. Would that be, is that authentic? Would that be likely? I don't know.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Especially with the Cherokee. They were the ones who had the most contact with Europeans early on. But the thing was interesting, though, even as I was watching that scene, I remembered something you said from a prior episode that he seemed too modern. But interestingly, I was looking for that. His speech sounded somewhat that way, but everything else didn't. He didn't. It wasn't the same as before.
Well, that's a
his
different
carriage.
chief.
Carriage was exactly.
Yeah.
I was looking for it when he started.
I thought this one was
I
better.
wonder if this. Yeah.
He didn't have the Burger King crown on. His costume was better, and I thought he looked authentic, but he sounded very educated, and you know, using words like convey and I don't remember what else, on our behalf, and things like that. That's not like rudimentary English words.
No.
Well, you know,
but again, like he said, they had been in contact at that point, given where they were and given how much contact they had. And people were sent, many of them were sent to England, especially the chiefs were sent to England to meet the king. And so there's a lot of contact, just an absolute lot of contact.
It's only in racist Westerns that the Native Americans say, me spear, you know, it's only in those kinds of things that they talk like that. Me eat meat, you eat meat. No.
I will echo that. I thought the title card of Adso lying on the coat, which looked so realistic, a cat would totally find that spot. And then the way they worked his sneezing in, just, you know, kind of subtly, which got Ian off the hook because he didn't say too much. And you know, I think Major McDonald he works for me too.
Yeah.
So I have more.
I had noted that. I said to myself, oh, so they're going to make Adzo Major McDonald's nemesis and not the White Sow, because probably the logistics of having the White Sow would have been too much. So I love that Adzo is going to be his nemesis. Well, Adzo is his nemesis as well.
He gets his wig, right?
Yeah.
And Rollo's back. Rollo came back.
Rollo made a guest appearance.
Yeah.
I also did not see the cairn, and I looked. There were some shots back from the house away on the road. I did not see that cairn anywhere.
Poor Myrta.
I'm going to have to talk to Stephen about that. And Jamie has a real mold problem on his property. I don't know if you guys noticed all the molehills, but I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, especially as he's riding that white steed in toward the stable. You look at the hill behind him. Back behind him on that hill.
Do a shampoo commercial.
Yes. Oh my goodness, that's a gorgeous horse.
It really is.
And Sam does a nice job sitting. I mean, they have learned to ride over all this time. But
well, Courtney, why did he have a rein in each hand? Is that a that's European style
English.
or something?
That's English. Yeah. And that's the saddles. They're writing Western, and
Western
they
side.
came over
They're
from
not writing Western
the
side.
UK. So
England. They're writing England.
they're writing English.
I didn't even know that. Is that really a difference in how you write? Like Western writes with one hand and then English with two? Because everyone around here writes English, so I've never really
well, you can have
seen anything else.
Western reigns can also be in two, but generally people loop them and they sometimes hold them in. They don't usually have two separate ones. Because they're really long when they're in two, and so they'll loop them and then just still hold them like that separately. But it makes it so they can ride with one hand. So if they're doing functional stuff like, you know, herding or opening gates, they've got a free hand. Yeah. Whereas English,
interesting.
You usually always have the separated,
because you have somebody to open your gates for you.
But you ride with two hands separately. Usually, it's in English. You don't ride with one hand.
Okay.
What's going on with Fergus's fake hand?
It was there.
It looks funny. I mean, it's there, but it looks funny to me. It almost, because I remember his hand in season 3 looked very tough and wooden. This one almost looks like a leather glove. I don't know.
I think, remember, he had different ones, didn't he?
Yeah,
he wore leather
different things that he would have touched.
Okay.
Yeah.
He had a leather glove that he put like hay or something in.
It was some kind of grain or something like that.
Something that I noticed towards the end of season 5, have they just completely abandoned the fact that Roger's voice was damaged? And I'm wondering why, because his damaged voice was so much a part of Roger in the books. It was so significant, and it added so much to his character. And they've just done away with it. So he's just warbling and speaking freely. And I'm saying, no, I don't like that.
I forgot about it.
No, I didn't.
Well,
because
they're going to have to do something about it for future books.
Oh, right.
Exactly.
Oh.
if they go on with the story, they're going to have to figure something out.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like that. I like Major McDonald. He encapsulates the actor who is playing him, has got that fine line down pat between his obnoxious English red coat self and the fact that he's a decent person underneath, which is the Major McDonald of the books.
Yes.
You know, it's so clever how they did that, because I recognize Major McDonald.
He's a Scot too, though.
Yeah.
In the books. And you know, I think that might be why he comes across a little bit more personable, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought that it was an interesting device how they got Tom to submit to Claire's surgery, you know, to agree to the surgery. And he did it because he couldn't beat his daughter.
Yeah, but I mean, yes.
You know, and that is so, that's really Tom. Yeah, it's really Tom, and it's so sad and sick. But that is what caused him to go to Claire and get, you know, and say, okay, I will take your operation.
It's such a clever device too.
Yeah, it was clever.
Because we didn't have to see Malva get a beating, which wouldn't really work.
Too many beatings. But I am noticing that little undercurrent between Tom and Claire.
Yes.
It's there. I'm seeing it. And how he looks at her sometimes, I'm seeing that, so that, you know, no spoilers, but when whatever happens depending on how they want to, that I'm sold on that, because I see that little push and pull there, and I like it.
And Claire,
and how she looks baffled.
She looks baffled.
I see
exactly.
A beneficent look on his face is when he's looking at her.
Yeah,
it's the only time you see it. Otherwise, his face is sour all the time.
Poor Tom.
But she also has this reaction of just, she's baffled every time she interacts with him. Like, what's this guy's deal?
Yeah, I think when she's sweeping the porch and he walks away, she's got such a great look. Like, what the hell, is going on with this guy? He's like, I like bossy Claire.
Yeah. And I'm loving Shady Jamie. Shady Jamie is having a field day. Yeah. Do you see how he just put his thumb on Tom about the meeting house?
Yeah, and how he stepped forward and his blue eyes went. Yeah. And he told him about my wife too.
Yeah, I am just loving Shady Jamie. And you see, and do you see how Tom just diminished?
Yeah.
That's why he hates Jamie so much, because everything that he would want to be, Jamie is, and he realizes that he will never get there.
Well, he doesn't know how to be that. He can't be that.
Yeah, he wants to be. He wants to be, and it is killing him because it's right there in his face.
And then poor Alan is just following right in his footsteps with no, he didn't have a choice. Yeah. So I noticed a few more things, and this isn't maybe medical anatomical, but do you think Claire could really be counting Marcelly's pulse while she's talking?
No. If you're counting her pulse, you can't, there's no way you can count in your head and speak at the same time and feel a pulse.
And I was like, she's talented, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
If you're really you could I can guess a pulse.
You don't need
based
a
on
minute.
what I'm feeling.
Yeah, you don't need a minute to make that determination.
And you don't even need an hour. I mean, like I've tested it many times where I've even felt my own pulse and then checked it to see if I was about accurate. And after a while, you can kind of tell if a pulse is fast or slow. But she doesn't have anything with the
seconds hand, that to do even 6 seconds or 10
No,
seconds.
I'm just saying, I mean, after a while, if you're experienced enough, you can feel a pulse and get an idea if it's around 80, 90,
there's
100,
a rhythm.
120.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, maybe she was that. Let's see.
And you can say 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000 in your head.
But not while you're talking.
Not while you're counting.
No. But that's how you check a pulse.
Oh, without any
type of device. You just 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. That gives you the seconds.
Good to know. After their love scene, the Jamie coming home horny after the Indian girls love scene, I noticed Jamie had dilated pupils. Carmen, are you so proud of me?
I am.
This is really something that worked for me, but I love how in this episode, Claire says things like, I know you'll do the right thing. I think you made the right choice. And you see the effect on him. Mm-hmm. That makes a difference to him to feel that support. And I'm so happy that once again, we're getting supportive Claire.
Don't you think that she's more like Book Claire this?
Yes. And I love Book Claire. I love Book Claire.
Yeah.
Due to Kathy, I noticed that the window casement in the living room is a different color than the wall, as is the fireplace.
Oh. Decorating on the ridge.
Yeah. It's like a greenish color in the window casement, and the fireplace is like a darker charcoaly color.
I didn't even notice that.
Well, you just
we will now. Once. We got to go back.
I mean, you look behind me, you can see I love color walls. I mean, obviously, I have a chocolate wall behind me, so I mean, I love color.
But they did different ones in the same room, and they did have that same furniture back, Carmen. That Jamie and Lord John Grey sat in.
The font.
Oh, that wasn't the room I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
In the last one, it was the room where Tom Christie came in and sat down with, and he was welcomed in. It's kind of like
the
kitchen waiting room or something.
The mounds of bread room, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you said that, it brought to mind that yellow furniture, and I noticed that it was still there. I loved Germain at the funeral, his little dimples. I noticed that Roger is a damn good minister. I thought he, said his lines after Granny Wilson.
Yeah.
Somebody called her Granny Smith.
He said one of my favorite lines in the episode when he said that she's nearer
Yes, yes.
Yes.
God, than him.
She says, well, you're standing before him too. Because he said, you're
says,
standing
Yeah,
before
but
God,
you're
God,
nearer.
as are you.
Well, you're a little
He said,
closer.
as are you. And he said, but you're a little closer. That was very
The way
good.
he said it was just awesome. I noticed that Granny Wilson had very good dying eyes. They went to half mast.
Mhm.
Can you imagine being that sin eater and that's your job, to go around and eat their sins and say, I give easement and rest to thee, and for thy peace in Christ's name I pawn my own soul? Like, what? How do you get into that line of work? That's terrible.
Yeah.
I think that you're starving to death, most likely, and you can't work, and it's a way to get some,
And you're sick.
some food, some wine, and a little bit of money.
Yeah, good point. Because
They're
if
medical and anatomical.
then let's do that. Let's do that.
I like the use of the wooden Pinard obstetrical stethoscope that she used with Marcelly. I don't know if you noticed that or not. Get down on them, listen to it. That is called a Pinard horn. And they did have them then. They were made out of wood as a usual thing. I was really pleased to see that Claire showed Malva which correct fingers to use to take Marcelly's pulse. Mm-hmm. And she used her index and her middle. She didn't use her thumb.
Is it, and that's because the thumb has a pulse of its own or something?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And sensitivity also of these fingers tend to be more sensitive.
Yeah, but the thumb has quite a large digital artery that goes through it. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want to get your thumb involved in that. I thought that I want to say that Mrs. Wilson's abdominal aortic aneurysm, Claire palpates it through the abdomen. That is possible to do that, but not with a corset.
She was a little low. And she was a little low.
Well, we couldn't tell because it was a really, I don't know if you saw it, but it zoomed in and she kind of reached in between her clothes, it looked like, and I couldn't really see well where she was reaching, but one can be palpated if your girth is less than 100 centimeters. Your measurement around your waist, if it exceeds 100 centimeters, you have the layer of fat is thick enough that she wouldn't be able to palpate.
I see.
The abdominal aorta sits on the back of the abdominal canal. It's deep.
Yeah.
So if you had stays on, she would not be able to compress. She have to be able to compress the belly to feel it. And she can't do that with stays. She could not do that. It's hard to do, I guess. There's more failure rate if a person is in fabulous physical condition and have a hard belly.
Oh.
And the third thing is if you're heavier, there's too much fat in the way and you can't really compress the belly down so that you can feel the bulge of the aneurysm. That's what she's feeling.
Although it's pretty spectacular when you do.
It can be.
It's very alarming.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll say.
Quite alarming. And of course now with stethoscopes, not only can you feel it, you can hear it. And that's really
that sounds a bit ghoulish.
Yeah.
No, you hear like a swish sound going, mostly because it depends on what arteries are.
It's called a bruit, I think, and you do hear the swish sound in it.
I have one more question about that. How did she know that she was bleeding internally in the book?
Certainly, probably from her paleness. I mean, in order for you to think that someone's dead, there's certain color changes they would have. So I guess she probably just assumed that, in order for her to have been suppressed to the point where she stopped breathing, her skin was pale, her lips were blue.
She said her blood pressure was so low because she was bleeding internally, and that's why she lost consciousness.
Right.
That's right. I thought she was.
But that's also why she wouldn't have been able to feel it.
Yes.
Okay, but
wouldn't have been able to feel it if the blood pressure was
because it's.
My question is, you're saying it's not realistic, but yet we accepted it in the book, did we not? What's the difference?
I I haven't
we
read
didn't
it
accept
for a
it in the
while.
I
book.
I
haven't
have
read
to
it. I
go
don't
back
remember.
and read
I don't
it
remember.
to be
Mhm.
sure.
Okay.
I don't
There are a couple of
remember.
medical missteps in the book, actually, and that was one of
Yeah.
them.
What she wouldn't be able to tell is that whether or not she was bleeding
Bleeding internally.
from it, unless the patient told her what she was experiencing. If she was having sudden lower pain in her back and down radiating down her legs, that would be consistent with the bleeding. The laminaria, that's a seaweed, and it grows in the southern Pacific and the northern Atlantic. And they usually make a roll out of it and put it in the cervical canal. And then, as she said, it absorbs fluid and it slowly, up to 10 times its size, and it'll slowly open up the cervix. So it does still get used. One of the things I thought was really odd was why Tom Christie, when he came up and told her, I'm ready to have the surgery, I've decided to have it. His hand that he had injured and that she had stitched up was bloody. And yet she sent him away and didn't say, let me see what's happened with your hand.
Why are you bleeding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why are you bleeding? I thought that was out of character for Claire.
Okay.
And then one last thing is that this week I've read that the prop people found what they patterned the mask that Claire used after what's called a Ferguson mask, but it looks nothing like the Ferguson mask. That thing was made out of wire. This one is made out of leather. But what I did notice this time is that there was a plugin of what looked like to be gauze on the inside of it before she puts the cap on, which we didn't see last time. And also, if you look, just she's putting it on her face, it has a white base to it. Because we didn't see it last time, and I couldn't figure out how the ether could get through. If it was leather, how would it get through there in order to be breathed, inhaled? But it looked like it was cloth. It still's not a good design because the Ferguson was one of these open drip method of delivering ether, and she just poured it in and plopped it on her face with no control over it at all.
Claire is using a lot of modern terminology. When she's talking to Jamie about this, you put it in the cervix, and I could perform a cesarean section. And I'm listening to it, and I'm wondering, were those terms commonly used?
No,
they
would have used womb.
They would have been. No, she's from the 50s. That's the other thing. I was thinking about that also. That whether even in the 50s. Some of the cesarean and the cervix would definitely have been known because a lot of those terms came about during that era because of the testing that was done on slave women. Because like I said, cesareans were actually developed during the time in the 1700s, actually, but from people working on, they would do surgeries on slave women as experiments. So they knew about that by the 1950s, definitely.
I was even thinking about it from that angle in terms of whether or not it would have been common in the 50s where clay came from. I'm talking about her using it in the 17 or 1800s, wherever they were, in speaking to Jamie about that. I'm saying, this terminology sounds a bit modern for her to be talking to him, about the cervix and cesarean sections. I mean, it felt a little incongruous to me.
Well, she may have brought this up to him before in her midwifery, though.
Yeah.
That's an explanation that I would
we just have to fill in our own backstory.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add, Catherine? The medical anatomical?
From the medical, no, but just the scientific part that I thought was interesting was, Bree making matches. And then everyone's like, so? I mean, because they had other ways of making fire, so they weren't all that impressed. But it was still pretty remarkable. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then with Roger doing sort of a magic trick with the.
How did he do that?
Mace boy.
Because he just held it.
He used his thumb. He probably just used his thumb as the strike. As a strike.
Okay.
To make it.
That's why he put his why he
Yeah.
hid it from Aiden.
I've never done that with my thumb. Have you guys successfully done that?
No.
You can only do it. You can do it with if you take the matches with the ones with the little white tip, you can do it with those, but without the white tip ones, you can't. The red, like the all red ones.
Is that because they have phosphorus?
I think what they do is they add a little extra on the tip of the white ones. Yes.
Okay.
I think that's true.
They're a little bit different in their make because the red ones sometimes don't even strike, in my opinion, in my experience.
Yeah.
And they get all mushed up.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to say a little bit about physiology because when Fergus was suckling Marcelly's breast, I hope no one gets upset about that.
Breast.
What happens is that initiates the release of oxytocin.
Yes.
From the pituitary gland. It's not made in the pituitary gland, but it's released from there. And that floods the bloodstream and that causes the uterus to contract. That's what happens when you nurse after you've given birth. And that helps shrink the uterus back down to its pre-pregnancy size. It assists in that. But he was doing it beforehand, but the mechanism is the same. So that's what helped to start the birth and her contractions was the release of oxytocin because he suckled and fondled her breasts.
I have a question. I kind of remember this from being pregnant. Isn't it also true that ejaculation contains, is it prostaglandins that also stimulates labor? So that's there when they're having sex after everybody leaves the room.
Yeah,
that would further assist the labor.
Well, the contraction during an orgasm would as well.
Yeah, all of it. So it's his. I mean, I think sperm has prostaglandin.
It does have prostaglandin in it,
which
and the thought is that
creates,
it loosens the cervix so that it gives it easier for the sperm to get through
to
where the egg is. Prostaglandin is used as relaxes smooth muscle. So I would think it would do the opposite because the cervix actually is essentially a smooth muscle. So
if it relaxes it, then
yeah.
But you know what? The cervix
it opens it during,
because the cervix needs to open and shorten and thin out during childbirth, and so anything that allows, and they do take
track.
Yeah, and the uterus contracts through that. So often what they'll do is there are prostaglandin tablets that you'll sometimes, now they'll put up into the cervix to help. But what it does is it softens it so that it opens, shortens, and thins.
I was going to say that even though the cervix is considered anatomically to be part of the uterus, it's often described as the neck of the uterus. Functionally and anatomically, functionally at least, it behaves differently than the rest of the uterus does. It's like a separate organ in and of itself, so it has its own responses to different stimuli. So it doesn't menstruate, for instance. You don't.
Yeah.
The cervix itself doesn't lose its epithelium like the uterus does.
Lining of the uterus. Mm-hmm.
I loved Claire said, "This baby has a big head," and Marcelly says, "You think?" That's something to that effect.
Marcelly had some great lines.
I just remember that.
She delivers them very well too. I also want to say that ether smells a lot like acetone. My husband squirted some on a cloth yesterday and let me smell it. And because I said to him, "What does it smell like?" He's had it before when he was a boy on a surgery that he had done. And so he squirted some on a cloth and let me smell it. It smells a lot like acetone. It has that kind of really sharp
ether sitting around their house.
Yeah, and what is acetone?
You know why? Okay, I'm going to tell you why. So this is to combat the things that I've seen on social media that ether isn't very flammable. It is rated number 4 by the National Fire Protection Association, which is the highest ranking for flammability. And it is used to start diesel engines. That's why we have it. We have a diesel generator, thank you.
Generator.
And our well. Because when the power goes out, and it does fairly often out here because the trees fall on lines and things like that. If it's cold, diesel won't flow enough so that when it's compressed, it sparks and starts the motor up. But if you squirt it comes in a little can like a hairspray. You just squirt a little bit on the air intake, and boy, that engine just starts right up because it ignites instantly because the ether ignites, and then the ether starts the diesel. So it's used all the time for that. And that's something that I want to say because I've seen several people write and say that ether is not a problem, it's safe. I've seen several people write that, and they're mistaken about that. And that's one of the another reason why I don't really like them using this is because I think it's giving some people the wrong impression about this substance.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now stop my ether soapbox.
Your ether rant.
Yeah, rant.
I didn't have a chance to look it up, but all the different types of dwarfism, like primordial and all the rest.
400 types.
Wow.
According to the WebMD website.
Mm-hmm.
And they said,
I knew there was a lot, but I just didn't know there was that many.
I guess most of them are actually sort of unique genetic mutations. There are some which are well known, achondroplastic and so forth, but there are other types of dwarfisms that are just in kind of idiopathic, if I can use that term. They just don't know what where it came from. They just seem like they're spontaneous mutations that caused it, and there's nothing in the family. And that kind of seems like that might be what's going on here in the case of Marcelly and Fergus. Bless his heart, his face. I agree. Wasn't it you? It's hard to believe that all of this time we've been looking at him and he's just been kind of standing in the corner. And then he delivers like that.
Oh, he was so good. I'm going to start with some BTS. I was able to ask Kate Cheeseman about the intimacy coordinator. And she said, just to clear up something about what an intimacy coordinator does, it is a joint relationship with the director, a bit like a stunt coordinator. Vanessa was fab, as I think the first time I met Katrina and Sam, it was to rehearse the sex scenes, like the first time they met, which could be uncomfortable. The first time that Kate met Sam and Kat was to rehearse the sex scenes. So that would be an awkward meeting, But
yeah, I could see where that might be.
But the intimacy coordinator helps us find the right language and helps with the choreography of what we come up with. She also makes sure the actors and I feel safe. It was still me who directed the scene. And in the case of 601, I wanted Claire to be in charge due to the previous rape. I wanted it to be loving and intimate and very close, and to show that she loved the scars on Jamie as they were part of him.
It was a lovely scene.
Okay, let's do favorite lines.
My favorite line was when Roger was talking to Fergus to get him to go to Marcelly when she was giving birth. And essentially was telling him, be the man that she thinks you are. And if you can't be that man, basically fake it. I can't remember the exact line. I wanted to write it down, but just pretend.
Yeah.
And then it was even made more powerful by the fact that he actually then delivered when he got there. I was going to say the second one was when Jamie was telling Claire when he wrote the letter to the governor, and he was asking him why was he doing that, and he basically said because Ian is tied to the Indians and I am tied to Ian. Yeah. And the words I'm not quoting it verbatim, but
his allegiance is to them and my allegiance is to him.
Allegiance is to him. Yeah.
And his delivery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen that exact delivery out of him before. It was so raw and there was something very peeled back about that. I don't know how to say it any other way.
Perfect. Pitch
So
perfect.
Well, I like the line that when Jamie said the two women were with him and Ian, and he said Christ, and Ian says, "No, Uncle, they didn't think you were him." I thought
Ian was having so much fun.
He did. He was just being really naughty to his uncle. I thought the line that Bird gave, "We can kill them without guns if we want to," was a stark reminder of the state of things, you know, to Jamie. I also liked Claire's retort to Tom Christie when he started, "Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Paul's letter in Timothy," but she said clearly St. Paul met a woman he couldn't out argue. No, better to put a stopper on that entire sex than to win your point fairly. I really like that one.
That was a great one. I think my favorite one was Adso, if I'm to die, don't be letting Mr. Fraser do any autopsies on me. I thought that was so great. I mean, that's an example of the writing that is not in the book, and it's so perfect. And it was, and Claire started laughing.
And it was so Marcelly.
It was so Marcelly. It was great. Even Adso was great in that scene. I loved it when Jamie said, "I didn't ken a man could have so much to do with this part."
With that part.
I liked when Ian said, "There's two of them, Uncle, and the other one is waiting her turn."
Oh, I said my favorite line already. When he says, "It's a good thing I'm married to an old man, or you'd have on your knees with their ass in the air." And then the other one was, I said it before too, when Claire says, "This baby's got a big head," and Marcelly says, "You think?" I swear to that effect.
What does she say exactly? She says,
"Is that so?
Is that so?" It's so great. I actually loved that pushing scene. Did you guys think that was realistic, Docs?
When she was telling her not to push with
when Marcelly's just that whole sequence of Marcelly pushing.
Yeah. It does have to be coordinated. And so when she told her not to push, that is very realistic.
But I mean,
because if she pushes asynchronous to a contraction, it could actually cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, but you usually know when you're having a contraction.
No, but not everyone pushes during the contraction. They'll push during the contraction, but also in between.
Yeah. And that's where I remember that because you're just like, get out.
Oh, yeah. I never had any contractions, so I can't even remember.
What?
Yeah.
I had backache. I had cesareans.
And I had a cesarean with Christina. But I just had backache with Kim.
Wow.
No contractions at all.
And then she just came out?
Yeah. My waters broke, and by the time they flung me down to the delivery suite, she was just there. Whoosh!
Wow. Was that your second?
5 minutes.
Was that your second one? I don't know the order of them.
No, Kimmy was my first. That was Kimmy.
For a first baby?
No contractions. Yeah. Because they were going to send me home. I went to the hospital, and all I was having was backache. So they sent Michael home and said, "Come back for her in the morning because she's not having any contractions. This baby is not coming." I got up in the middle of the night, stood up, waters broke. By the time I rang the bell and the nurse came and they flung me onto the thing and flung me down to the delivery seat. By the time they put me on the bed, Kimmy was just saying, "Hey, 5 minutes."
It took me 2 days.
There was one medical thing. Carmen, did you?
2 days? Sorry.
2 days.
Where did your brain
hours.
go? Oh yeah, I did that too, and then they did a cesarean after all of that. I'm like, why didn't you do it 20 hours before?
Me too.
I was going to ask you where your brain went when Marcelly told Claire she had a headache, and she said her legs are swelling. Well, my thing is, I hope they weren't suggesting that she had preeclampsia with her
Well,
fourth
yeah,
child.
that's what I was, or
And I was like,
at least
with
kidney
your
problem.
fourth. But then I thought, well, or the other was like congestive heart failure. But I just
her
thought,
heart.
Did you all see Marcy's ankles? They look like two little hams. Those prosthetics were great. Her ankles were just so swollen. Did you see that?
they were large.
Oh, I noticed the tights but
on
I
the
didn't-
bed.
They did a great job with the prosthetics for her. It was really impressive, and she did a great job acting with the limits of those prosthetics too. I just was completely blown away by that whole series of scenes.
My other favorite line
go ahead.
was when Mr. Bug said to what's his face, I hope you're not the talkative one.
Yes, that was so good.
And
then and Kezzy goes,
yeah, hold on. One other thing that didn't work for me. I am not liking this forwardness with Lizzie and the Bairdsley's. It's just too un-Lizzie-like, on Beardsley-like. I'm not liking it. How forward they are, how upfront, I'll make sure your brother keeps out to travel. No.
Well, I don't think they would talk like that in front of the Bugs either.
Yeah, they wouldn't talk like that in front of the Bugs. It's just a bit too, I didn't like it. That's the only thing aside from the granny funeral, that's the only thing that came on, and I said, what the hell?
Granny Smith, you called her, by the way. She's not an apple. Carmen, did you have any other favorite lines?
I do.
Okay.
When Claire says to Tom Christie, well, if I should need to sharpen my broomstick or my surgeon's knife, Mr. Christie,
Because Alan.
Christie, I shall come to you first. That it was nice and sharp. Talking about sharpening something. Claire delivered some really great lines, slap downs in this.
Very Claire-like too, like not even thinking about the
consequences.
Yeah. And then when Marsley said, well, let this be a lesson to you, lass. If you do end up marrying, don't let him touch you or you'll end up like this. But the way she delivered it was so droll. It was just really, really wonderful.
She also said, it seems to me the proper position would be out of my womb. A lot of good lines in this one. Like Antoinette said, it didn't feel like they were stuck in where you're like, well, they just stuck that in there. They're it flowed.
Seamless.
Yeah.
Like even the conversation between Malva and Claire when all the activity was going on between Marsley and Fergus.
Yeah.
It's like her curiosity always comes through. And Claire always indulges her.
Yeah. In that regard. I thought that was a good scene. You mean Sinners and Whores?
Oh God, so many good scenes.
Okay, let's do standouts. I'll just do mine real fast. Cesar, Lauren, Jess, Reynolds, music, Jamie's white horse, and if that was Richard riding to go get Fergus, that was some good riding.
But he rides really though.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he's a rider.
Yeah, so I think it may have been him. We'll have to find out. Catherine, standouts?
Definitely Fergus and Marsley. And just the writing in general, just everything, the writing, the directing, the just the coordination of everything and the editing, because it could have really been choppy throughout.
That's true.
And seemed very disconnected, and it didn't. It was edited very well.
Good point. Carmen?
I think we should just hand Marsley and Cesar their Emmys now. Just give it to them.
Yeah.
That's some of the best acting I've ever seen that they performed there. I thought that I agree with everything that has been said. I think Malva, who is such a tiny little girl, boy, standing next to Claire, she looked like she came barely to her waist. I know she was taller than that, but she's really tiny. I thought she's developing the character of Malva extremely well with not much verbal, acting. She does have some, but she does a lot with her facial expressions and her body
eyes.
Expressions. And yes, her eyes and her mouth, the kind of sort of smirk that she has, that she gets when she knows that somebody's lying to themselves and everybody else. I thought the costuming at the Cherokee Village was just, oh my Lord, that was beautiful. It was just beautiful. I really appreciated that. In fact, all the costuming. I love the jackets and belts that Claire and Bree are wearing. I just think they're so handsome and flattering. They're just, just really fit like gloves, and they make them look beautiful
with the little purses and things attached.
Yeah, cool. All the little details.
I would wear that stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to just pop in real quick on the Malva subject. Did you guys notice her face when Claire says he's a dwarf? I watched it again. I rewound and she goes, like she's gonna go to that means evil. Satan and all that stuff. It was very subtle, but she does have a reaction.
Yeah.
Standouts, Antoinette.
Oh gosh, Lauren Lyle is a powerhouse. If she doesn't get some kind of recognition as a supporting, Lauren, Cesar were standouts, but the ensemble is so strong. I think the ensemble is a standout for me because everybody is carrying their character and their scenes impeccably. Yeah. I don't think anybody got left behind in this episode. So whatever is pulling that out of them, whether it was COVID, whatever it is, long may it continue. The music, as I've said before, and the cinematography, beautiful, beautiful shots that did not take me out of the story, but just made me just, we've said it all, the writing, the devices that they use to get us to the hearts of the characters without too much verbiage. I'm thinking back to how we talked about when we talked about the first episode, and I'm saying I'm reconciling myself to the fact that it's a visual medium and they have to use scenes, and I'm seeing it play out in such excellence in the next episode. The writing stood out for me.
That's Allison and Steve, who are a team.
Big up to them. Big up, big up, big up. I felt as if they read the books.
Yeah.
And they got these characters. And that is how they were able to give them to us without following the books slavishly. Because we got the characters. They must have read the books and got the essence of these characters. And their skill is in distilling that into a script. Genius.
Okay, big themes.
One of the lines that stood out for me was when Ian said to Bree, it would be a pity, or to Jamie, whoever he said it to, if our Cherokee neighbors became our enemies. And it made me start to think about how different things would have been for the indigenous peoples if more settlers had that mindset. And how easy it was for these settlers to come, look at these indigenous peoples and decide that, like the Highlanders and how the English regarded them, that they were savages.
Yes.
Just to be put down and subjugated.
Less than.
Heartbreaking. And to this day, the indigenous peoples are still fighting for their land, to hold on to their culture. And if the people had had that kind of sentiment that Ian expressed way back, how different things could have been. It's us, you know. It's us. We cause the destiny. We cause it. It's us human beings, for the good or for the bad. It comes down to us. It's not some cosmic thing swirling around and just throwing things at us, and we just have to, you know, go with the flow because this is destiny, this is the universe. Bullshit. It's us. It's us. It comes down to us. That's what I came up with.
What I felt was it was redemption. Fergus, Roger, Jamie to a certain degree. It just felt like there were people who were sinking at some point and then they came back. And that's what I saw. Roger, when he started preaching, when you consider what happened last season, Fergus pretty much coming out of his stupor, literally and figuratively. And then Jamie, as well as taking on the role of Indian agent. And then, going one direction, which Ian and most people watching didn't agree with, probably, and then redeeming himself in the end. So I just felt like it was just a lot of people pivoting from going down one road and then coming back and going down another. And it just seemed like it was done very, very well and very believably. It wasn't like someone like, ooh, epiphany. And you're just like, okay, you know, that usually takes months before you get to that point. This was not that. It was just very, very well done and very well written and acted as well.
And Tom Christie, who said, no, don't do my hand. Now, his redemption was not necessarily for a positive reason, but he did change.
Yeah, he changed.
Yeah.
I'd like to say something about the title, Allegiances. It doesn't come up until the very end when Jamie is explaining to Claire that, you know, Ian has had a child by his Mohawk wife, and so he feels an allegiance to the Native Americans, and that he feels an allegiance to his nephew. But I saw a lot of other allegiances in this episode too, and it sort of reflects what Catherine was saying in that we see Marsley and Fergus renew their allegiance to each other. We see a new allegiance between Roger and Tom Christie, because now Tom is turning to Roger, asking him to become the preacher for the group, at least on a temporary basis. And I won't be surprised if it turns out to be more than that. There's Jamie and Claire refinding it themselves and their relationship, and recommitting themselves after the trauma that she experienced just a few months before that. There's new alliances being made. I guess I would like the term alliance more than allegiance. I think they're kind of close in what they mean in this particular instance. So I think that that is a really important theme. I also think that the balancing act that Jamie is doing with all that he's trying to do by being an Indian agent, figure out what to do about them, what to do about his own family, what to do about the future of the United States of America and the potential there, the war that's coming, the settlers, the fisher folk, Tom Christie, and all the negativity that he's bringing with him. I mean, he's got quite a balancing act. And I think watching him move his way through that with a good deal of success and accuracy. At the very end, his handling of Tom Christie there at the church is masterful. Absolutely masterful. I mean, he put him down all with a slight smile on his face, you know, most of the time. I mean, he was very, you know, you should get some window panes. That would be nice. And a nice bell, you know, and he just told him basically, this is what you're going to do. And if you don't, you can get out. So
I again didn't have a big theme. I just didn't get that far. And then as you're talking and I'm thinking, I think what it is for me is, I don't know the word, revelation. It's revealing something. I saw people maybe like shedding some layers to show who they are, emerging maybe. So we're seeing Claire get really more clear about, I don't care if they think I'm a witch. And, you know, all of that she said to Tom Christie about St. Paul, and that she's doing her thing. Brianna is, you know, doing her matches and her engineering. Tom Christie's even there's a part of him being revealed that, you know, he's really attracted to Claire, and this old facade and this person who he's been may not quite work going forward. I think that's happening with Alan and Malva. Roger, you know, he's, you know, Brianna even says, you're not a minister. And he's kind of like, yeah, yes, I am. Yeah, like, that's what I want to, yes, I am. That's what I want to do. And it just felt like everyone was kind of emerging or blossoming, shedding something, and coming into a new part of themselves. Even Marcellian saying, you know, I'm so sick of him being drunk. And, you know, I don't think she's given voice to that for herself, you know, until that moment with Claire. And Roger saying what he did to Fergus. Dude, grab your sack, you know, be the guy that she thinks you are. Yeah. It was just kind of like, and Ian saying, my allegiance is here, you know, I'm going to help these guys if you're not
even
going
if you
to.
even if you won't.
Yeah, there was a big, like, it was like growth in this episode, and in the characters. It seemed like in all of them. And Jamie coming around to saying, you know, my allegiance is Ian. Again, Jamie always comes back to family. Always. So that's really what I saw, is like a growth or an emergence or revealing, which is just makes it so exciting for whatever comes next. And I have that same trepidation. I'm like, oh no, they usually only have the directors for 2 episodes. So no more Kate Cheeseman. What's going to happen?
Oh God.
But I trust Matt.
Yes.
I do.
Yes. So let's keep everything crossed.
And Diana said this is a great season. So
she did say that.
And she has been proven right.
Yeah,
so
she
far,
doesn't.
So good.
She doesn't give out that stuff.
She said it's the best in season 1.
Yeah, exactly.
That's high praise indeed.
Well, if it's this high quality, I think it'll be great. All right, I gotta go. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, listen.
What?
Yes?
I am getting so many people asking me about this Scotland trip. Y'all better get some information
April
as soon as you can. Oh,
April is when it's going to happen.
Tell everybody April.
And let me tell you why you don't want to go to Scotland in June. As soon as the sun starts going down, those midges that you saw in Men in Kilts, they're real.
Yes, they are.
And you can't go outside without getting eaten after sunset. Now, the sun goes down really late in the summer, but I thought about that afterward. I was like, oh yeah, Antoinette would hate that.
Yeah.
The midges.
Okay.
Alrighty, y'all.
Love ya. Bye.